Hello, and welcome to the Beer Jerk Beer of the Week Drink Along, where every week we discover a different beer and find out the story behind it. I'm Luke, and this week we're drinking Kiwifruit Sour from Mount Brewing. So you probably drank along with us last week, so you might know a bit about the story of Mount Brewing. One of the older craft breweries in New Zealand, having been founded in the misty times of the previous century, and a wonderful story that it was recently handed over to the next generation. So Mount these days is headed up by Briar, who's the daughter of the founders, who was I think just a few months old when the brewery was founded in the 90s, and she and her partner Niall head up operations at Mount Brewing. So as the name suggests, they're in Mount Maunganui, and they've got a really cool brew pub that you can go and visit called Rising Tide. So they have everything on tap, all of their beers, and a bunch of interesting guests as well, so definitely a good place to visit when you're next in the area. So yeah, Mount, I suppose, were known as a relatively traditional craft brewery until they went through a bit of a reinvention a few years ago. So if these are the first Mount beers you've tried in a while, I'm sure that you'll be enjoying them very much. And try some other of their stuff out. They've got a really passionate team there, and especially the brew team that's headed up by Pawel, who's a really talented Polish brewer. And they've got a pretty wicked range of seasonals coming out, including this Kiwifruit Sour. We don't have that many sours in our box. Similar to last week, I was talking about hazy IPAs. We like to balance out everything. And recently there has been a prevalence of kettle sours, which have just become more and more popular. And they weren't always popular. This kettle souring style was a style that almost disappeared really until the sort of craft beer revolution in the States really brought back this technique. So I started Beer Jerk in early 2015. And I was just having a quick look over early sour beers that we did. We had one called Sourdough, which is like a wild ferment beer from Wild Beer Company in the UK, who sadly closed recently. And that was made with a sourdough culture. And then we just gave it a break for years. And it wasn't until 2018 when we had the next sour beers in the box. Just because we were worried people would be pissed off and cancel their subscription. Because back in 2015, 16, 17 and 18, beers like this were still very divisive. They were not as common spread as they are these days, with them pouring at even relatively normal bars, not just the most extreme craft beer bars. So the ones we had in 2018 were, we did an import from a Swedish brewery called Omnipollo, and we had a mango lassi beer, and I just went on a bit of a kick just trying to convert people to sour beers. So I think I lined up 3 sour beers in 3 or 4 weeks, quite quick succession. So I think I remember we did have quite a few people unsubscribe over that period because they were sick of them. So yeah, divisive, definitely not for everybody, and quite a different take on beer if you're a hophead or really into your lagers or into your stouts. There's 2 kinds of sour beers. One which has the wild culture, and they're often beers that are barrel aged or aged in foeders. Foeder is just a fancy word for a huge wooden barrel. And ones that are use a cool ship process. So they're Belgian lambic style beers, Flanders ales. A lot of the interesting stuff that you see in New Zealand from breweries like Kraftwerk, 8 Wired, McLeod's, Small Gods have done a couple like that. But they're beers that are, it's quite a slow, laborious process because they're using wild yeast that come from the atmosphere that just aren't as beefy as cultured beer yeast that makes clean beer. So generally beers like that come in big glass bottles, like a bunch of these you see behind me, and are very expensive and have a lot of complexity and a lot of layers to them. Then there are kettle sour beers like this that are made with mainly Lactobacillus, which is a kind of bug that is used for souring yogurt. So don't worry, it is there's no actual dairy in it. It's just one of the bacteria that's used in the souring process. So the way that the brewers make a beer like this, a kettle sour, which is virtually all the sour beers that you come across that you see in cans, and certainly ones at this sort of price point as well. It's the expensive ones that are more wild ferment sour. So the brewer takes the wort, the sugary water, then you cool it down, crash cool it, and then you would add the Lactobacillus for between 24 and 48 hours. And it just goes in there and makes it sour, basically. And then the brewer goes in and kills all of the bacteria, and then you can pitch your normal beer yeast into it to ferment the beer. So the amount of time that you leave the Lactobacillus in the wort determines how sour it is. So sometimes you can drink a kettle sour beer, which is a bit flaccid, a bit insipid. There's not a lot of tartness to it. And other times you'll have one which is really mouth-puckeringly over-the-top sour, which means they've left the bugs in there for a longer period. So, so brewers can literally decide the pH they want their sour beer to end up at, and choose how long to leave the bugs in there. So this isn't necessarily a new way of making beers. You've got beers like Berliner Weisse, that have been around for many centuries that would use a really similar technique to this to get this like fast souring process on the go. And I think Mount have done a good job with this one, and perfectly chosen fruit being the kiwi fruit, which is such a delicious fruit. It just has such lively, zesty tartness that comes through in here. There's heaps of kiwi in here. It's definitely not overwhelming. It's I don't know if this has entered their core range now, but it probably should do, because I think it's a beer that will be popular with a lot of people. And it's nice to get that green kiwi fruit character. There's of course I think red kiwi fruit that's out now, and then the golden kiwi fruit, which is a bullshit fruit. It's just a sweet, bland mush, when really the joy of the kiwi fruit is the sourness, it is the tartness. I know there's a lot of New Zealanders that have strong feelings about kiwis and kiwi fruits. They are not a New Zealand fruit, however proudly you associate yourselves with them. It's the Chinese gooseberry, so they were introduced here, although New Zealand agriculture have done wonderful things with cultivating it and making new varieties. And also, I met somebody recently that got really upset that in other countries they call kiwi fruit a kiwi. But I don't know why he got upset. People call things different things in different parts of the world. Anyway, so I hope that you guys enjoy this beer tonight. Cool artwork. I kind of like the sort of amorphous blobs on here. One of the nice things about the Mount cans is that they always put the name of who wrote the recipe on there, which is the lovely little thing to give a little nod to the brewer. So often it's, well, not so often in every other context. I think they're the only people that actually call out the brewer, because yeah, they're the hardworking people that are behind these beers that we're all enjoying. So shout out to Tom Ball for the recipe on this one. Good work. All right, other news. What is going on? Oh, we've talking of interesting sour beers. One of the most popular sour beers that we've ever had here has been the lemon meringue sour from Sailor's Grave in Australia. So they're down in Gippsland in the deep southeast. So our next import from Sailor's Grave is very close. Well, I'm hoping it'll arrive in our warehouse tomorrow. So as soon as that arrives, I'll be sharing it in the Beer Jerk members group on Facebook. So if you're watching this and you're not part of that, get involved with the NZ Beer Jerks on Facebook. So we're going to do some interesting mixed boxes from Sailor's Grave. We've got some really cool stuff lined up from those, really special brewery. And other news, Beer Jerk Run Club. I don't know if you know about Beer Jerk Run Club, but every week we meet here at the Fridge and Flagon, which is in central Auckland. We're just by the power station at Eden Terrace, next to a whole load of building sites. Hopefully you can't hear the crashing and hammering that's going on outside with my little mic. So we've got a bar here that opens a few days a week, and we have all sorts of events going on, but every single Monday we have Beer Jerk Run Club. So I launched the Run Club probably 5 years ago, just because I realised I hadn't done any exercise in many years, and running is cheap, and it's just kind of easy, and you get it done in half an hour. I'm not a big fan of running, but yeah, somehow I've created this wonderful run club. So we meet here at 5:30 every Monday. This is a little tinny logo designed by my mate Paul for Run Club. And we run 5Ks. Everyone goes at their own pace. Some people are slow, some people are fast. Then we drink a beer afterwards. So if you live in Auckland and you're thinking you'd enjoy getting a bit active, but mainly it's about socialising and enjoying the beers, come along and join us. Everyone's welcome, even dogs, kids, people on scooters, people that only want to run 3Ks, just go a bit of the way. So maybe think about joining us on Monday for a run. Thank you for joining us. Great work again from Mount. See you next time.